Hello, good afternoon. I'm Rachel Patton, Executive Director of Preserve Arkansas. Preserve Arkansas is the statewide nonprofit advocate for historic preservation. Welcome to Women in Preservation, the series that features women who are working to save historic places. Thank you to our series sponsor, DMX Architecture of Fayetteville, for their generous support of women in preservation. Many of you are already members of Preserve Arkansas, and we thank you for your support. If you're not already a member, I'd like to invite you to formally join us for as little as $50 a year. Your memberships provide vital support to our organization and allow us to continue the important work of saving Arkansas's historic places. You may learn more and become a member at preservearkansas.org. Join us next month on July 23rd for a talk by Amanda Edwards. Amanda Edwards is an architectural conservator and associate principal at MTFA Design and Preservation in Arlington, Virginia. And for those of you who may not recognize that firm immediately, that is also John Mott's firm, who hails from Fort Smith. And so we'll see Amanda in July. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speakers, Kelly Wilson and Mila Masur. Born and raised in Fort Smith, Kelly Wilson is an architect and contractor at Bashir's Construction. She graduated from the University of Arkansas with a Bachelor of Architecture degree before moving to Boston, where she worked as an architect on several historic projects. While in Boston, she graduated from Babson College with an MBA and lived in a historic building downtown. Kelly and her husband, Daniel, moved back to Fort Smith in 2011 and live in a historic four-square house. Kelly has been on the board of the Fort Smith Heritage Foundation since 2012 and the Fort Smith Planning Commission since 2017. Mila Masur has always had a passion for historic buildings and places. Shortly after moving to Fort Smith, she was hired as the executive director of the Clayton House, an historic house museum in the heart of the Belgrove Historic District. She has served on the Belgrove Historic Commission since 2018 and was appointed as the chair in 2023. Welcome, Kelly and Mila. There you are. You look great.
All right, can you guys hear us okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Kelly Wilson, and this is Mila Masur. As Rachel said, I work at Bashir's Construction, and Mila is the executive director at the Clayton House. So this first picture is just a front picture of the Clayton House, which we will talk about a little bit later.
So. Oh, Kelly, I don't see your screen yet.
Oh, really? Okay. Uh-oh. Let's see, let's escape. So we go, where's this?
There we go.
Oh, this one. Yes. There we go. Okay. In business.
Okay. Now it looks good. Okay.
All right. So as I said, this is the front picture of the Clayton House. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is me and my kids. And I do have a husband as well. I just didn't include him in this front side. But I grew up in Fort Smith, Arkansas, born and raised here. And then I graduated from the School of Architecture at Arkansas, the Fay Jones School of Architecture in 2005. My husband and I got married while I was still in college, and he is a mechanical engineer. So we have really riveting conversations at home. We moved to Boston together in 2005 and lived there to 2011. And then we realized how expensive it was and that we missed our family back home. So we decided to move back to Fort Smith in 2011. We had a great experience in Boston, and it really taught us a whole lot about big city living and historic preservation. So in Boston, I worked at a few different architecture firms and a real estate development firm. I'll show you a project that I did up there with one of the architectural firms. Almost all of the projects that I worked at there dealt with some sort of historic nature, whether it was renovation, preservation, or restoration, or adding on to a historic property. While I was in Boston, I also went back and got an MBA at Babson College, which taught me a lot more about the business side of working in construction and in design. So, like I said, we moved back to Fort Smith in 2011, and I now work at Bashir's Construction. I've worked there since 2011, and we do design build at Bashir's. So, my community involvement, I've been on the Fort Smith Heritage Foundation, which is also known as the Clayton House Board, since 2012. I have been on the Fort Smith Planning Commission since 2017. And I'm on the Arkansas AIA State Board, and I'm a former member of the ABC Arkansas State Board, which is the Associated Builders and Contractors of Arkansas. I'm also on the school board for Immaculate Conception School, which is housed in a historic building in downtown Fort Smith. So this is the first project that I'd like to show you guys. So this was my very first project in Boston out of architecture school, and it is an old insane asylum in Danvers, Massachusetts. So this was about, I don't know, 30 to 45 minutes north of Boston. And this building is Victorian Gothic. It sat on about 500 acres in Danvers, Massachusetts. There's a lot of Googling that you can do about this. There's a movie about it. It is said to be very haunted, and it was a very scary building to work at. So this picture down in the lower right-hand corner was the state of it whenever I first started working on it. And of course, I worked on a big team of architects. And I was in my early 20s, and they told me that we were going to go inside this building. So I made sure to wear my big, bright orange puffy coat so I wouldn't get lost and left to die alone in this boarded up building. This building was terrifying when we went in. It was all boarded up. It was dark. It was scary. There were floors that had huge gaping holes in it. Lots of urban explorers had been in. There was graffiti everywhere, lots of profanity. It was very scary. It was like it had been just abandoned and left alone, and nobody did anything with the building. It was sad. So I worked at the architectural team on this project, and the owner was Avalon Bay, which is a large apartment complex developer in the Northeast. So what Avalon Bay wanted to do was turn this property into a large multifamily complex. So they ended up tearing down a lot of the building. Now I'm gonna go back. So up in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the main hospital building. This was known as the Kirkbride building. And it was developed this plan that looks like it's in the shape of a bat with large bat wings, was developed by an architect or a doctor, I'm sorry, named Kirkbride. And his thinking was to have a floor plan where it allowed in the most natural light as possible and a beautiful building to help people's mental states, which is pretty innovative back in the late 1800s, I guess mid 1800s, to really think about that natural light helping your mental state. But all of the rumors and stories about this building were pretty dismal, and there seemed to be a lot of abuse that happened here as well. So it's an interesting building with a very interesting past. So this is when Avalon Bay started to do the demolition in 2006. So they demolished a big portion of those bat wings that I was talking about and kept the center and then probably the center two wings off of that center building. As you can see, there's the main building was built out of red brick and a lot of stonework in there. It's really beautiful architecture. So what we did with this is we took down everything inside, all of the floors, all of the structure, and kept the facade. And then this is the end result. This was the main apartment building of the entire complex. So the entire complex at Avalon Bay Danvers is about 430 units. And this was the main kind of clubhouse and the main units of this entire complex. There's a pool in the back here. There's a gym inside. So it's pretty unique. As you can see, we did rebuild that tower up front and kept kept the exterior facade as much as we could. So pretty neat. This was a very interesting and fun project to work on. So my next project is in downtown Fort Smith. This is called the Mill and Exchange at the Bakery District. This building, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner, started whenever we started working on it. It was an old law firm. It was originally built in 1923 and served as a plumbing supply warehouse in Fort Smith. It's right next to the Bakery District, or it's part of the Bakery District, and it's right next door to the old Shipley Baking Company in Fort Smith. So KMW Properties has bought the Shipley Bakery and this building and has their offices located across the street at Hannah Oil and Gas. And they've really developed this section of downtown Fort Smith into a really fun and vibrant district called the Bakery District. So there's a lot of art and entertainment here. There's food and drinks and office space. So this building, the dark gray one, we renovated that a couple years ago. And the top floor is rental office space, kind of like hoteling office space where you can come in and either rent it long-term or for a month or for the day. The first floor is now Craft and Toll engineers, and they recently renovated it to become their downtown Fort Smith office. And then the bottom floor, there's a basement here, and that is also shared office space. This is the primary floor before Craft and Toll moved in. I figured that you guys would really like to look at this floor in this state. It was just absolutely beautiful. So we stripped everything down. Like I said, it was a law firm that, was pretty stuck in the 1980s and 1990s design-wise. So we took everything down to basically the bare bones, exposed all of the beautiful historic structure, all of the wood floors, the wood ceilings, or structure at the floor, and the steel columns. On the second floor, you'll see the columns turn to wood, which is really beautiful. So this is the second floor. This is actually called the Mill and Exchange. So what we did here design-wise was try to really accentuate the historic properties of the building, really keep it pretty minimal, and highlight just the natural beauty of this building. We did use some funky colors here and there throughout, and some textures that complemented the wood. This shows also some more textures with different fabrics that we used. The owners were great on this property. They've done a lot of things around town that are nice, and have worked around town for many years. It's Phil White and Tom Hanna. They played an integral role in the ownership of this building. But they came up with a bunch of found antique furniture and artifacts from different buildings, as you can see with this trellis work in the left-hand picture. And then all of the furniture, we either bought it as a team and installed it, or the owners found it through antiquing and thrifting, which is pretty cool. So down in the right-hand corner, you can see the number 10, which was a marker for the plumbing supply business. And then in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the red staircase, which was left over from the law firm. And, you know, the staircase is not historic, but it was pretty cool. So we kept it and highlighted it. We painted it red to, you know, contrast with the dark gray of the exterior of the building. So it's kind of a funky staircase there that probably meets code. This is another part of the interior. This is on the left-hand side. It's the first floor atrium that extends up through the second floor with the grand chandelier that the owners also found through antiquing. This came from an old hotel in Rhode Island, I want to say. And Phil White himself restored the chandelier. It's absolutely beautiful. Our team installed it. We were pretty nervous installing it, but we made it work. And as you can see, we used just different pops of color and texture throughout with rugs, leather chairs, velvet curtains, and that little pod up there. In the upper right-hand corner, we utilized the pressed tin ceiling that we found in the building after we took down the law firm ceilings. So that was kind of a neat find. And we took it down where it was originally located because it didn't make sense in that space, and we moved it to some conference rooms on the second floor here. This is another project that I'm working on right now. This project is under construction in downtown Fort Smith. This is the Harbor House, which is a men's, and this is the Men's Recovery Center of Harbor House. So Harbor House is, I think, statewide in Arkansas. It's an addiction and recovery center for men and women. And this happens to be their Fort Smith Men's Recovery Center. So this is the old Rosalie Tillis Children's Home, which was an orphanage founded in 1912. So there's a lot of emotional ties to this building, and there's a lot of architectural quality, of course, in this building, but the Men's Recovery Center was having a hard time working with their building, and it needed to be renovated. So we looked at it, and we've determined that some of the interior walls could be kept, but a lot of them came down. We're doing a gut renovation in here, replacing all of the mechanical equipment, electrical and plumbing equipment. All the fixtures throughout are getting replaced. We're waterproofing on the basement because it just water flows through the basement whenever it rains. So there are a lot of practical needs that this building needed. They also needed more space in this building to house the business and the men who were receiving treatment. So we are adding on a large addition to the right-hand side of this building. As you can see here, this is an architectural elevation, real simple one. So that right-hand one-story piece will be an addition. So we're going to try to match the brick as much as possible, and we've matched the roof slope to mimic the massing of the building. So here's some detail shots of the inside and outside of the Harbor House. So when we got our hands on this building, every ceiling had either 12 by 12 ceiling tiles or like a 2 by 4 acoustical ceiling tile. So we started taking those down and found a lot of this beadboard inside. So we can't keep all of it exposed. It's just not practical for what they want to do in this space, but we are going to leave some of it exposed, which is a change from the original plan. So it's exciting. I had to rework a lot of the ductwork and electrical design to make that happen. Another found surprise that we uncovered underneath about 5 different layers of floor covering were the original wood floors. So I got really excited when we found that. So we are going to keep those as much as possible and restore those back to a finished state. In the upper right-hand corner, that is the existing terrazzo from part of the house that we're going to polish and keep in place. And it looks great. I mean, you guys know terrazzo, it never loses its appeal. It's pretty awesome. And then in the lower right-hand corner is the attic. So this was all covered up with paneling that was flat, like a flat ceiling in there. And we uncovered it and we're like, we got to keep this. This is so cool. So we're gonna use the vault of the structure. We are gonna insulate it and come back in with some drywall, but we'll keep some of that wood exposed. And then, as you guys know, in a historic commercial property, there's a lot of just mess from over the years. So we've got, all of the old wiring that had never been pulled out, all of the old ductwork, which was just run all over the place. And then we have to put new ductwork in, and it takes up a lot of just the physical space of the building. As you can see in that third picture over, that's the existing plumbing that and different wall materials that were just kind of all inside of the wall. We open it up to put in new plumbing and you find that. And then in this right-hand picture is, a big mess of electrical wires. So when we're done with this, it's going to be all cleaned up and nice and pretty. Okay, so this next project is one of my personal houses. This is our Cotter house up in Cotter, Arkansas. This is not where I live. This is a vacation property that we bought probably 8 years ago. So the pictures of it with the white paint are when we found it. It was in foreclosure and it was literally falling in on itself. The inspector, which we hired to inspect it, took one step in and said no. So my husband and I said, sure, we'll take it. So we got a really good deal on it. And it's been a project ever since. I don't know if we'll ever be done with it, but it's been a lot of fun and it's just a really great house. So Cotter is an old mining town up in the north central part of the state. It's right on the White River with this historic rainbow concrete bridge there, as you can see, which is just an engineering marvel in itself. It's a really cool bridge. So the town has a lot of these old craftsman style bungalows all over it, which some of them are restored and some of them haven't. So it's a very unique town in Arkansas. So that's a picture of my husband looking up at it saying, oh my God, what have we done? So this is what we did to it. That's my daughter over there with the flag. So we use it a lot. It's a great getaway. As you can see, we did So we did do a lot of work on the inside with shoring up the house. We did a lot of work down in the basement, getting it structurally sound, and then up on the roof as well. We added some rooms on the top floor. I don't have any pictures of that, but so we made it a lot more usable and clean, got rid of a lot of mold in there. And then we painted the outside, which is the biggest wow factor. So those are the original pressed concrete blocks that about half the houses in Cotter have. So we think that this house was built sometime around 1915 or 1920s, which a lot of the houses in Cotter have these same elements and those same blocks. They also have that same front gate column, like the short little obelisk there. And there's a lot of fencing around in Cotter, like old wire ornamental fencing that runs into these gate posts. So it's pretty neat town. This is my house in Fort Smith. This is a 4 square house, and I know you guys are saying no, it's not. So it was a 4 square house. It still is a 4 square house on the inside, but this facade was built in the 1970s. So although it looks old, it was built in the 1970s. So that front door, the left door opens and the right door is completely fake. So there's nothing behind that right door. It's walled in on the inside. So yeah, and you can see the front. So as you guys know, 4 squares usually have a front and side, like a shake dormer. And you can see it in our attic. It's still framed, but it's just been framed over. So we bought this house. It had been abandoned or vacant for 6 years. They did keep it up really well. But there was a lot of fabric on the walls, and the fabric had a lot of padding underneath it. There was wallpaper everywhere. There was carpet everywhere in all of the bathrooms. It was all beautiful finishes. The curtains were just absolutely beautiful, but it was past its prime. There were a lot of tears in the fabric. There were tears in the curtains, and it was super dusty. So our goal was to take it back to kind of the bones of the house. And so we did remove a lot of the finishes. So we took the walls back to the original plaster walls and had to fill in a lot of the marks from the fabric that had been applied to them. And then we took out the carpet and refinished the original wood floors, which is really exciting, and we really enjoy the wood floors. And those are my kids. So we did live here while we did this. It was a crazy time and wild, but we got through it. So it was fun. So this is the house in its current state now. So we were able to retain a lot of the trim work everywhere. And we retained, if you guys can tell, on the ceiling, it's like a pink sponge paint that they had put, the previous owners had applied. So we kept the pink, so we have pink ceilings, and there's like pink paint in various rooms of the house, which is pretty unique. There's gold trim on the spindles of the staircase and in the crown molding that was original to when we bought it. So those chandeliers are also, clearly they're not original chandeliers, but they were there whenever we bought the house. So we cleaned them up, and they're great conversation pieces. This is our bathroom that we use as a master bathroom. So on the left-hand side are the original pictures for when we bought the house. There was a lot of green marble everywhere, lots of wallpaper, and like I said, carpet in the bathroom. So we took that out, and we took out the blue toilet and the blue tub, and we put the toilet on the side of the road, and it made the Fort Smith residents forum on Facebook and got a lot of laughs. So I didn't put it on there. Somebody else drove down the road and put it on Facebook. So, and then somebody actually took the toilet. So, and we, put in a more modern bathroom, and it does have the wood floors, which we restored. This is a few different pictures of the house. So on the left-hand side is our bar area. We spend a lot of time in here. And as you can see, it has pink walls, and we replaced the floor tile in here. It had carpet originally. And when I picked out this honed, polished tan tile, the people at the flooring company said, Kelly, you don't want this. This is really old fashioned. I said, I do want this. It looks perfect in my house. We kept the green bathroom down in the left-hand corner, and then the kitchen got a complete overhaul. We did keep a lot of the cabinet structure, but we put in new doors, new facing on the cabinets and the drawers, got rid of that wallpaper, and opened up the kitchen a little bit. So, and then up in the right-hand corner is just a detail of the brick leading out to our pool area. So it's just something that I really enjoy with the house, these small details of really cool things. And then I'll let Mila have her turn.
Okay, hi. So you can see my history there. I was born in Panama. My dad was in the Army. I moved all over the world. And I think that's sort of where my first interest in architecture happened. My mother drug us all around when we lived in Germany, looking at old buildings. And then I ended up marrying a Marine and continued to travel. When my husband retired, we moved to Fort Smith in 2016, and we bought that house that we're standing in front of there. It was built in 1900. In 2017, I was hired to be the executive director at the Clayton House. I have a very easy commute. I can actually see the back of the Clayton House from my front porch. I've been on the Belgrove Historic Commission since 2018, and I've been the chair since 2023. My community involvement's on there as well. Not really historic, just what I'm working on. So in the pictures there, we have my grandsons. The top picture, that's them sitting on the porch swing on my front porch. And the bottom picture is them sitting on the staircase in the Clayton House. So this is my house, and so the top left is a picture of the original homeowner, Mr. Friedman. He actually has 2 buildings in downtown Fort Smith with his name on them, the Friedman Mincer building and the Friedman Wegman building, which is now the ProPac building, which was an incredibly restored building. Underneath that is a picture. The house originally had sleeping porches on it, and they were removed in the 80s. And so my husband and I put them back on, but we put them back on as sun porches, and that's what the picture is in the backyard. Above that is the front of the house, what it looks like now. Was it Halloween? I love Halloween, so we decorate the house with skeletons every year. So they're storming the house. One of the cool things that we found in the house, it's on the doorway. It's called a mezuzah, and it's what Jewish people put on their homes for good luck or to bless them. And it's intact. And the scroll, the people we bought the house from, he found it, and he actually took it off the wall, and it has a prayer on the inside. And so the original scroll's intact. So Mr. Friedman, it would have been his. So that's pretty cool. It's been there since 1900. And I'm Jewish too. So it was kind of it was meant to be for us to purchase this house. And then I don't have a ton of pictures of what I've done to it, but that's my new primary bathroom. So in 1990, a woman bought the house, and the house had 6 bedrooms and only 1 bathroom. So she cut the big bathroom into 2 little bathrooms. And we just finished this restoration of putting it back to 1 big bathroom. And I take a bath in that clawfoot tub every night. Did you have all these pictures on here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. This is the Belle Grove Historic District. I did look at you must have added this one in. Okay, sorry. So this is the Belle Grove Historic District. That's the Clayton House again. Then this is the top left is it the Von Chat House? I think so. And then it just moved me out of this. Sorry. Okay. And then the house with the red trim, that was restored by a company called Historical Holdings. And that company has actually restored four houses in the historic district. The house below that is the Rogers Tillis house. So Rosalie Tillis that Kelly had mentioned, that's where she had lived. Top right is the Bernie Cottage. That house is, and the house next to it, the little white house next to it, have been owned by the same families since they were built. But that one in particular, the Bernie house, was owned by Charles Bernie, and he built it for his daughter. But he was started off as a furniture maker, but then made his name in the undertaking business. Below that is the Belle Grove Schoolhouse, which has been standing since the late 1800s. And then the Bonneville House, which is named for its most famous resident, General Bonneville, who actually he never lived there, but his wife bought it, and she lived there for a long time. She was 60, I can't remember, 50 years younger than he was, something like that. All right, so this is the Clayton House. So it is named for our most favorite resident, which was William Henry Harrison Clayton, and he was the chief prosecutor in Judge Parker's court. It is an Italianate style home, which you can tell, as you all know, by the fancy eyebrows and the big tall windows. So the house was started being restored in 1970, and it took 7 years. We opened as a museum in 1977. And then the speaker who's going to be there next month, and who works for the same company that John Mott does. So John Mott was the architect, and this was his first big restoration project that he did was the Clayton House. So we're going to do just a little tour. This is on the left is the formal parlor of the Clayton House, and you see the fresco on the ceiling there. And in a couple of slides, you'll see what it looked like when the house was saved from demolition. When they were doing the restoration on the house, they found about 7 layers of wallpaper on the ceiling, and as they're pulling them down, they discovered the fresco, and so they decided to be very careful with how they took it down. And obviously they couldn't save the original, but there was an art student at what was then West Ark, it's now UFIS, who came in, and it took him 6 weeks to paint it. And it's pretty close to the original. When they discovered it, there was an article in the newspaper, and there was a woman in a nursing home in Little Rock whose grandfather had painted it. And she would come to work with him in the Clayton House when the Claytons lived here, and sit on the floor and watch him paint the ceiling. And so they brought her up from Little Rock, and she said it's pretty close. The center's a little off, but it's pretty close to what the original was. The picture on the right shows the portraits of the 4 Clayton brothers on there. Our guy Will is bottom right. And then upper left is his brother Powell Clayton, who was instrumental in building the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs. Here we have, this is the upstairs landing on the left and right, which is where they would have spent their days, sort of like their family room. The middle picture is our dining room. We do keep it set as if the Claytons were entertaining and having a dinner party, which they did very often. The china on the table belonged to a woman named Agnes Oglesby, and she was a childhood friend of the Claytons' oldest daughters, and her brother Ira was a pallbearer in Judge Clayton's funeral. And anyway, so she was alive during the restoration. She lived to be 104, and she never got married or had kids, which is why she lived to be 104. And so she had no heirs, so she donated a lot of our furniture and furnishings. So this was actually Agnes's bed. That bed is called a half tester, and our ceilings are 12.4, I believe, and it goes to the ceiling. It is anchored to the ceiling, so it's never going anywhere. So when we start the interior renovation, I'm not quite sure how we're going to get the wallpaper off that wall behind it, but we'll try. And then the bedroom on the right top is sort of set up what it would look like when the Clayton house was a boarding house with 2 beds for, maybe mom and dad and kids, and then a little sitting area, and then just another connecting bedroom. And then there's our staircase. It's pretty spectacular. It is walnut and cypress. So the whole structure of the house, the whole the wood on the inside, the structure, yeah, is cypress. And then the staircase is cypress with walnut risers. And we have lots and lots of brides who like to have their pictures taken on there. It's very pretty. They had to actually, when they did the renovation, they completely removed the staircase and then put it back in. So here's what it looked like when it was saved. So basically, the house, Claytons lived in the house until 1897. It stayed in the Clayton family until 1920 when the judge passed away. It was sold, and it served as a boarding house from 1920 until 1969 when there was a fire in the attic. And the woman who owned it tried to sell it. Nobody wanted a 6,000 square foot house with fire damage in the worst part of Fort Smith. And so it was going to be torn down. And actually the house next door did get torn. It was an old Victorian, and it did get torn down. And a woman named Julia Yaden stepped in and said, "You've got to stop tearing down our history." And so she saved the Clayton house. She and her friends created the Belle Grove Historic District to try and save as many of the old homes as they could. So the Belle Grove Historic District are the 22 square blocks that surround the Clayton house. So then they started the restoration, and that's actually, I think, John Mott's father, Ralph, in the picture on the lower left. So the house is in really bad shape. It's kind of scary to think that like a year before this that there were people living in here, but there were. So there you can see on the right the fresco pictures from when they discovered that, and then them putting the house back together. So it is considered an authentic restoration. They literally took the house down to the studs and put it back together again, using as much of the original hardware that they could. They even saved some of the flathead nails. And the only 2 things we don't have from the original is they did not restore the plaster walls. They decided it would just be not cost effective. And then the hardwood floor that we have was probably put in the 1930s or 1940s, but they did not want to tear it up, not knowing what was underneath or the shape of what was underneath. They do know what was underneath, which are about 8 to 10 inch wide cypress planks. So, but we do have that original on the landing of the staircase. Okay. I guess now we do questions.
Yes, perfect. Great job. Thank you. Well, my first question.
Or do stop share?
Well, before you stop share, what is this building we're looking at?
So this is just a little building that is by my office out in South Sebastian County. So about 20, 30 minutes south of Fort Smith. And I walk at lunchtime, and I walk back past this building every time, and I just love it. So that's all. I thought you guys would really appreciate it as well. I mean, it's old, it's just gorgeous, it's decomposing, but it's still there. It's, so
It's so interesting. Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
there had to be a story about it.
It's crazy because the lawn is so maintained.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, cool. Okay, interesting. But yeah, you can stop share if you want to, and then people can see you better. Okay, great. Let's see, you've got some questions I know in here. Okay, the first couple I see are for Kelly. Kelly, was that safe in your home when you purchased it? Was there, I missed,
I feel like somebody might know the story if you asked. So we had, I can't, was that on? Okay, so in our pantry, which was right behind the kitchen, we had this safe that was there whenever we purchased it. And the family that owned our house before us had owned it since the house was built in 1915. The family name is it was the Hembry family. So they had a lot of businesses around Portsmouth. They had a bank, a tire shop, and then they were integral in the founding of ArcBest or Avia. So they also had a large safe that was indestructible that was in the house, and it looked like the pantry had been built around this safe. Well, we don't need a safe. We don't have a lot of money. So we wanted the safe out, and we wanted more pantry space. So when we renovated the kitchen, we actually cut a large hole in the wall and had to remove the safe through the kitchen wall and then take the safe out of our house down the road to my husband's office. So that's the story of the safe. And
oh my gosh,
and now we have a pretty awesome pantry.
fair enough. Okay, Kelly, do you find the market for restoration to be vibrant in Fort Smith? And then why? Yes or no, and why?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of a glass half full type of person, or totally full, I guess. I grew up in Fort Smith, and people did not come. They did not live downtown. Whenever I grew up here, but since moving back in 2011, I've seen a really big increase in the desire to live downtown and to live in old houses and to restore old houses and old buildings in Fort Smith. So it's been really fun to watch that and very interesting. It's great. Oh, yes. So yes, I think there's a big push for it in Fort Smith.
Yeah.
We have a lot to work with in this town.
So I'll just add, so of the homes or the houses in Belgrove, when I moved here, I can't remember, there were probably 15 that nobody lived in. And I think now there might be 4 or 5.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
I mean, right now there's probably, if you take my house out of it, because that's all interior, but I'm looking out the window right now at the house under construction. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 or 6 right now that are being actively renovated on the exterior. And that's just in our 22 square blocks.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. Okay, from Mila. Oh, is the Belgrove District seeking out other properties to restore in Fort Smith?
So no. So we will only ever just oversee the boundary of this. And the Belgrove District really was just created for that purpose, to save this section. They tried to expand it a little bit, but there wasn't enough between here and like 17th Street. There weren't enough houses that made it qualify. And so that group just picked what they wanted. And we're the only monitored district in Fort Smith. The other historic districts are not. And no, we don't want to have to oversee anybody else's houses.
Well, I hope that that at least most of those ongoing projects are using historic tax credits.
So the historical holdings that did the gray house, the gray Victorian with the red trim, that is what he does, is the historic tax credits. And actually it's kind of funny because when he first did that house, he put an architectural shingled roof on the house. And the federal government, I guess it's the federal government, came back and said that house originally had a metal roof on it. And so he now has a metal roof over top of his shingled roof which was good.
Because
They actually checked.
that is what the tax credit, it's a historic preservation program.
Yes, exactly.
It's an incentive. It's an incentive. It's a valuable incentive, but you
yes,
got
and he's done a really good job on those. I mean, they're all duplexes, right? Because they have to be income producing, and he's got hundreds of thousands of dollars in them. But he did it very mindfully that they're all upstairs, downstairs, and so it would be really easy someday to turn them back into single family homes.
Great. Thank you. Okay. How is the Clayton House used, and does it have hours for visitation?
Yes, so we are a historic house museum. We are open Tuesday through Saturday from 12 to 4 and Sundays from 1 to 4. But we are open for at pretty much any time if you want for private tours, if you contact us. Like I said, I live across the street. So I often I'll just see people walking around the grounds and I'll walk over and say, oh, can I help you? Oh, you're not open yet. Okay, but I'll give you a tour. So yeah. And then we are a venue as well. So we do weddings and tea parties and
Showers.
Like bridal showers, baby showers, things like that. Lots of afternoon tea. That's my favorite thing to do.
Okay, great. And then are there opportunities for people to volunteer at the Clayton House?
Sure.
You can say no.
No. I'm really looking for volunteers who know how to do things like fix stuff.
Okay.
So we are actually, it's really very exciting. We just are launching a capital campaign. So we'll be 50 years old in 2027. And so we're trying to raise $50,000 a year for the next 3 years to do like a grand reopening of the interior. So we've done a lot with AHPP grants for the exterior. And we are getting ready to do the roof. And then after that, we're going to really concentrate on the inside because it really does not appear to have been touched since like 1975. So it needs some refurbishment.
Great. Well, good luck to you.
Thanks.
I'm glad that you've gotten so far with AHPP grants. That's fantastic.
Oh no, I unbelievable. And they're so easy to work with and just, really have been wonderful.
Good. Okay. I have one final question for Kelly. Kelly, as a contractor, what's the most challenging part of doing a historic building rehab? Maybe multiple challenging parts.
Yeah. So when we are approached and start working on a historic building, as everybody who has ever worked in any historic or any just, existing building, there's going to be a lot of unforeseen conditions. Things aren't, exactly what we thought. There's a lot of different layers of material, whether it be on the wall, the ceiling, the floors, just everything. There's lots of water intrusion. So there's a lot of changes that happen. And getting everybody on board to figure out the right way to remedy these issues is hard. Most people want to do something quick and easy, and they don't want to, go through the hardship of actually, really figuring it out. So that I would say is probably the hardest part of working with historic buildings.
Yep, I agree, but it's worth it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you all so much for a wonderful program, and thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next month. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.